Chris DeLeon here of Gam Keto. I'm going to make a conscious effort today to slow down my speech, as I'm sure some of you have noticed if you've watched any of my other videos. It's something which I've come back to now probably every few years of receiving feedback from children and adults alike, peers, professors, students, everyone, to be fair, that I should slow down my speech. And I think the thing that I have to keep reminding myself of is that communication isn't about how much I can get out of myself, right? Communication's about how much the other side receives. And that if I'm trying to throw a ball for someone else to catch, I'm not doing any favors by throwing it as hard or as fast as I can. We throw something very differently when the intent is for it to be caught. But without further ado, the topic today is actually game development sparring, giving and taking turns. This is a point I want to begin with a reference from Gaku Hama's Aikido for Life. He's the chief instructor of Nippon Kan. And a lot of the things about how I teach and train game developers are founded in martial arts schools. I study books about dojos as both a method of practice, a method of instruction, and also as a business model. I was a mixed martial artist for about 6 years, about half that time as a varsity wrestler, and then the other half as the head of a submission grappling club. And I just find these very useful to repurpose in how we talk about making games and learning to make games together. And what I really like here is an illustration where you can see right there, it looks a little bit like a block of tofu and a knife, but that blocky person is actually a wetting stone or a whetstone. And it says an Aikido partnership is like a whetstone and knife. Respect your partners. And in his words, what he says is, I often use the example of a whetstone and a knife. Your partner is your whetstone, and you are your partner's whetstone. In Aikido, you take turns throwing and falling, because the knife and the whetstone. This way, you can learn both techniques and falls. Whether you make your partner your enemy or friend is up to you. And again, even though in the picture it shows one as the whetstone and one as the knife, of course, central to his point is that they're taking turns. That we allow ourselves to be thrown as much as we also want to be the person doing the throwing. And that's what makes that practice possible. And in something like Gamkido Club, oftentimes the most involved members in our organization, the people giving the most to other projects, are themselves leads of their own games. But rather than think, I have my own vision and my own team to worry about, they give. They give plentifully to contribute as collaborators on visions led primarily by others in the club. And I think that this is very important for everyone involved, because it means that they're all getting practice both leading and they're getting practice following. They're getting practice guiding a vision and understanding what it's like to be on the other side of that, which allows them to become, in turn, better leaders. It's something that brings back another allegory as well, the story of the long spoons. And it's a tale that I first heard as a little kid in church about people who visited hell and saw that everyone was pouring soup on themselves from the elbow down. They were just giant spoons. And the arms were too long. The spoons were too big. The spoons were too big to feed themselves. And so they're getting soup all over the place. And then that same group of tourists went on to look at heaven. And people had the exact same deformity. They were still spoons from the elbows down, except they were feeding soup to each other. And that's very much the same thing that happens in our collaborative practice sparring projects, where it's so much easier in many cases to help out someone else a little bit if in return they'll do the same for us. Because when we work on games as teams, it's not just about the actual art or sound effects or level design or music that someone else chips in or code. Those are appreciated. Those do make a difference. But far more important than the actual content is the psychological support that comes with that. Is the sense that we're not alone in it. Is the sense that when we improve what we're doing, it's helping to raise up the work of others and put it in front of more people. And so this is why, again, we have this consideration that sometimes we're the whetstone, sometimes we're the knife, but that practice in sort of a sparring format is fundamentally built on taking turns and giving. That's it for today. Obviously, Gamketo Club is not the only place that this happens. It's much the same dynamic you'll see in a school, university, classroom. It's much the same dynamic that people do at game jams. It's all over the game development community because game developers as a whole are such giving, generous people, eager to create, excited to learn, excited to help one another out. But that's it for today. Chris DeLeon here for Gamketo. Thank you for tuning in, and look forward to playing the games that you're going to make.